Welcome to the Always Ask videocast. I'm your host, Amanda Busby, the lifestyle expert. For over a decade, I have been working with people to develop their style, organize the chaos, and create impactful experiences that help them live a more intentional and impactful life. With each episode, I am on a mission to bring you the most influential minds, people that have inspired and impacted my life on my own self-discovery journey around the globe. Together, we will shake up everything you thought you knew and help you to engage in life in a completely different way. Always ask, connecting people, creating experience, curating events. Enjoy the show. So, hello everybody and welcome to the show. I am beyond thankful to have Alita Watson here today, and she is just one of my favorite people in the whole world. I feel like you can see and sense her energy already, but she has been such an influential part of my life for, oh my gosh, how long? A lot of years. Like, when did we actually meet?
I think we met, I'm going to guess and say like 8 years ago, right? At that really fun,
Kentucky Derby.
Yes, Kentucky Derby. And you were wearing this gorgeous hat, and we're just like, such a beautiful life of the party. And I'm like, I need to know this woman. Who is this woman?
And I thought the same about you. I think it probably was about 8 years ago. And she was across the room, this red hat. I think you had like red lipstick on, and we both sort of locked eyes and we were like, we need to know each other. Like, we definitely need to meet. There was a beautiful energy right away. Yeah.
And it's been mad love ever since. And we both have gone through so many transitions since then.
Oh my gosh. It feels like we have reinvented ourselves over and over and over again in that period of time. And you are one of those people who I feel like going through transitions like that, sometimes you don't always gel with people as you move. And you are one of those amazing friends and influences in my life where like we've evolved together through it. And it's just so beautiful. So beautiful. So Alita she has had all of these beautiful experiences in her life. And we definitely connect on that of like, we are people that want to sort of soak the most out of life and get the experiences and be in service to other people. And so we've done that in all these different ways. You know, Alita has a background in event planning. She had this amazing company called Wing Woman, which I still love, which was coaching in the dating scenario, and all of these beautiful sort of paths that she's gone down. But now she is an executive coach, and she works with a startup company, and she's actually in-house. So she's working with all of the people on the team at every level to really sort of be the monk in the office or the guru in the office, right? Where everyone can come and sort of, get clear and get clarity. And she has this amazing ability to really sort of drop in with you and reflect and meet you where you're at, and also pull things out of you that you might not be able to sort of find in yourself. You always do that with me. It's amazing. I'm just, telling you something and you're like, oh, what about this? And I kind of tilt my head and I go, oh my gosh, I never saw it like that. You're amazing at that. So that's sort of where she is now, but she's gone through this whole journey to get there. And she uses this beautiful modality called circling to really sort of drop in her coaching life. But tell me a little bit more, tell everyone a little bit more about sort of who you are, how you got here, what you do. I'm just excited for people to know you.
Oh, thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. Mm-hmm. So cool to be here with you. Yeah, I was reflecting about all of the transitions I've been through to get to where I am today. And it's been quite a journey and a lot of different, I feel like I've lived 10 different lives. I'm about to turn 42 and find that I've probably had 6 different careers in my life.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
And I don't think you could have convinced me that I would be an in-house executive coach at a startup. That just was nowhere in my point of reality. And
I was shocked too, to be honest. But
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I can honestly say that as I look back, each one of my experiences contributed to where I am now. I needed to learn all of those things to do what I'm doing now. And I really feel like, as I reflect, I'm so grateful for all of the experience and the exposure and the hardships and the relationships and the breakdowns, and the breakthroughs, like all of it was necessary. And I find myself today, like looking around and really feeling like it was all more than worth it and all perfect, right? Like all the people who showed up, all of the big leaps that I took, and without knowing really how things were going to work out. Like it was confronting on many levels, and so I think like I've become a master of what it looks like to transition in a way where you can stay true to yourself and really like not lose your energy or your momentum with all these things that can kind of like pull you in different directions when you're sitting with a lot of uncertainty about what the next chapter is going to look like. So yeah, I mean, I think that I've been a coach now for about 5 years, and right now I coach all levels of this company. So from like frontline community who's in the service aspect of the company to the senior level executive team. And what's really cool is that, I feel like I'm making more of an impact than I ever did after working in nonprofit for 15 years, because I'm surrounded by people who are just so committed to making an impact and also to like doing their work, to understanding what their blind spots are. And like, really like asking, how do I occur to the world and what am I missing? And how can I have more connection? And it's wild. It's really wonderful. I'm loving it.
And that's amazing too, to be with people at that level, that they're like willing and wanting to work, because that's not always the case at all with the majority of people, right? They just to be at that spot where they're willing and they're really ready to make a change. That's an ideal space.
I mean, totally. I think that's actually like, in the nonprofit space, I was working with in my like last iteration of that, I was working with Smile Network, right? So we would bring these medical teams to developing countries and provide surgeries on kids with cleft lip and palate. Yeah. And so my job was to build the infrastructure in those places and build the relationships with ministries of health and government officials and, very powerful leaders who could make a huge impact. And my job was to get people to share resources, ideas, and to kind of co-create something that would be sustainable and really be of service in a big way. And I think I got to a place where I felt really heartbroken that there was so much amazing potential and desire to make an impact, but so often, people would get stuck in their rightness, I call it, right? Like they would let their egos get in the way, or they wouldn't be open to seeing an alternative perspective.
Right. Like, I know everything. Thank you for your input, but I'm good. I'm right, and I'm good over here. Right.
Yeah. And like, ultimately, we just didn't, there's so many things that just didn't come to fruition because of that. And I just got fascinated about communication and leadership and how we achieve a shared reality as we're creating something amazing. So yeah, here I am.
That's amazing. And so when you're working with people in general, like, how do you get past that threshold though of like, I have an idea of what I know and maybe you can help me a little bit, but like there's the exterior. There's usually like that first level like barrier, right? To get through to the deep core of what's going on. I think you're so good at that. Like I mentioned before, right? Like, how do you do that? How do you break through that to get to like the deeper place of what's happening?
Yeah, I think you mentioned, circling. Circling is a framework that is really kind of, it's a relational meditation. It's offering kind of unbiased reflections as you're witnessing someone talk about their experience, their suffering, their story that they have written about themselves or the world. And what I do is I just really deeply listen. And I share what I'm noticing. I share where I feel connected to what they're saying or when I don't. I share the emotion that comes up in response to their emotions in such a way that they can pop outside of their head and start to write a different story about what's possible for them. Right. And that actually is about like, me, if I say back to you what I heard you say, it actually gives you an opportunity to be like, wait, is that totally true? Or is that like
hear it from another perspective, right?
yeah,
It does.
exactly. Like
Yeah.
it actually has you be like, huh, like is that a belief that I have that I created long ago because of my upbringing or because of something that happened that kind of shaped how I think about myself. And I think in that reflection, people will often realize that there's a whole other world of possibility for
Right.
what's true or what's accessible to them.
Right.
And so I'm actually really, for me, like I've never been a proponent of like, traditional forms of therapy.
Right.
Grew up, I came from a divorced family, so I had a lot of experience going to therapy, and it just never really shifted my way of seeing myself. It wasn't until I discovered circling where I actually was able to reveal my own experience and have it reflected back to me in such a way where I could totally shape it and kind of move it in a different way. And so that's really what I do with circling is I just deeply listen. And it's not often that people get an unbiased, loving reflection about how they occur in the world. And yeah, I think that's where the magic is.
Well, and it's so powerful too. And I think when you're talking about that too, like the way that you're able to mold and shape it then when you can hear someone else's reflection of you is there's so much empowerment in that you can sort of take that and move it and shape it, in the way that you want versus traditional therapy. It's just a different modality. It's definitely an art form. They call it the art of circling, right? It feels like an art form in the way that that you sort of, you can come at it from so many different angles. And I know for you and I too, going through a lot of life transitions, that was so helpful for me because it was like I was moving out of this phase of my life where I was this entirely different or occurred in such a different way. And I knew I sort of wanted to be over here, but I needed to understand how I occurred here first, I think, to be able to sort of move through. And we had so many deep conversations around that, which really, really helped to sort of like illuminate that and make the path clearer to move out of that.
Yeah, and I mean, what was so cool about witnessing you was that, like, you knew that there was something more. That you knew that there was something calling you. You could not and weren't willing to settle, but you also didn't know what it looked like, how it was going to shape. You didn't have a very clear picture, but you also had this voice that was telling you over and over and over again, like, this isn't it. And that's where the suffering lies, right? That cognitive dissonance of like, okay, here's the reality I've been presented with, and I just have this innate knowing that there's something more. There's something more that's possible to me. And I think that's when transformation begins, is just with that curiosity.
Right.
Like, and so often people get stuck there because, a lot of reasons, like there's so much information available about how we can, ascend, grow, have better relationships, do our social work, all of that it's just kind of like people often don't know where to begin, or they're afraid that, like what are they going to have to sacrifice? And I think that's like, it's really courageous to lean into that inner voice and ask what's possible. So I think that's where I like really like got to know you. I was like, this woman, she's like ready. She's ready to do the work and to let go of, a lot of the things that were comfortable and safe and, not going too deeply into your own story, but it was just like seeing that courage in you was, I think, actually like bonded us. I was like, right on, let's go through this together because it's hard.
I love it. Well, and same with you too, just knowing what you've gone through in the transitions and getting into like that total discomfort of not knowing what's next, but knowing you have to leave that thing, that old way of being or that old paradigm, right? Like, and there is courage in that because so many people just stay because it's easier to just occur how they've always been and not move into, that version of themselves that they know is possible. They just sort of stay in it. And so same, I mean, your courage and you're like, we're going to go after it regardless of how it looks or it feels like, it's hard, but so worth it.
It is. And, it was cool when we were talking the other day about transition. I was just reflecting on like what keeps people stuck in that place of not moving is kind of this, I think it's a belief that it has to be like a black and white frame. Like it's hard to imagine what the gray area is going to look like. What is the transition space going to look like, right? Like, am I going to have to move out of my house and live with my parents? Like we tend to think in these kind of catastrophic ways of what it could potentially be like. And I've come to learn that like simplicity is so key. When you're thinking of a transition, like what are the basic needs that you have to meet to sustain yourself in a transition so it doesn't have to be like one massive leap all at once. I do think that there's something to be said about like baby steps, like move out and get a studio apartment and just make it really beautiful with a couple special touches, have a space that just feels like yours, where there's no frenetic energy or distractions or things. Like I think that's a really sacred time to just go inward and to plan for this change, right? It does not need to be one big drastic, one move to the next. There's a place where you can be in between that isn't as confronting or scary, and it just, it gives you time to integrate, like what.
I love that. And it is so true when you're moving through different seasons of your life. I think you do get this idea, expectations around here's, sort of the end of where I want to be. How do I get there? So then I think people get stuck too and like, I can't maybe fully go all the way there. So I'm just going to stay here. Right. But it is the simple, baby steps. And I think, in the new year now and going through COVID and all of this chaos going on in the world, I feel like there's a lot of people in that space of like, I'm in transition. I don't know what's next. It's a job or a relationship or, whatever it is. Like, how do I cope with the change and find that grounding and that stillness and that space that's mine, whether it's, internal or external, like figuring that out is, I think, on a lot of people's minds going through all this.
Yeah, I mean, this year has exposed everything that is no longer working, like literally everything. And people have really been forced to go inward and to be with themselves. And so I think that on the other side of this, as the world wakes up, the cognitive dissonance is going to be even louder, right? Like this kind of, it's really put a lot of things in perspective, how precious time is, how precious life is, and also how precious our freedom is to choose to create this destiny that we want. Like, so I'm just feeling a lot of hunger and desire and readiness for people to live and lead and love in a bigger way. And, that's going to come with a lot of transition. I think I really, I want people to know after, speaking from experience that like, yeah, it's terrifying to lean into the unknown, but you also just like got a really big taste of the unknown. And I think it's like working a muscle, right? It's like you get
it is
like discomfort of not being in control. And after that, it's like, you learn how to kind of surrender little by little and watch what naturally happens when you just stay true to yourself, so.
I love that. And it is the letting go of control, right? Which is never easy, but I think we can learn that, right? That resistance, like building that resistance muscle to learning, letting go of control. And it's a good point of like, we've all had to learn that regardless of if we wanted to or not with COVID this whole year. So going, okay, we can do more than we think. And we can go into those unknown, situations is important to remember. And I'm thinking of you too, and all of your lives that you've had and ways that you've moved. Like you've gone through more transitions probably than anyone I know. And I even remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, we were in San Francisco. You were moving from one apartment to the next apartment. We got locked out of one and your stuff was in another one. And it was so beautiful. We ended up staying in an apartment that wasn't fully furnished yet. It was like all of these crazy moments that are some of my favorite memories with you are like going through the unknowns and just doing it. Like, I love that about you. You're like, I'm just going to do it. I don't really know yet how it's all going to work out, but I'm going to move. Oh, and we couldn't find a key or something to that apartment that night.
Such a shit show that night.
And it was at night, and you looked so cute. You had boots on and a skirt, and I don't remember what I was wearing, but we were having fun. It was just like...
It was a blast. I mean, and I think that that's actually really notable, too, is like when you're going through transition, it's so important to find times where you can just have fun and lighten up, find a way to laugh at yourself and the situation, and really just connect in ways with people that, we're hardwired for that. I think that's one of the hardest things about transition is the isolation that can come with it. Right. Especially, if you're leaving a relationship or going through something with family, it's like, you're questioning, who are my people? And am I have that feeling of community and tribe again? And, I found that my experience was that it's always accessible to you. You just have to put yourself out there and accept invitations, right? Be willing to make spontaneous trips to San Francisco and not make plans, just go with it and see what happens. Like, that was an epic trip. I remember it very clearly.
It was. And those are some of the most beautiful moments where you make the space and the magic comes in, right? Instead of staying planned, like going with those experiences. And I don't know, there's beauty in that. So all the transitions that you've gone through, what is that kind of your through line that's gotten you through? It's finding your community wherever you are. Because again, you've lived all over the world. I mean, you've really, if there's anyone that I think of when I think transition, it's you, like Costa Rica and San Francisco and Canada, like all over. Yeah. And you've, I don't know, it's just amazing and inspiring to sort of see how you've done that. So what has kept you grounded and still and focused and aligned, like through all of that? And that's in a short period of time, mind you. That's not even over like 30 years. It's like over the last 5 years, you've moved all over the place. So,
it's been like 22 moves in the past 4 years, I think, which is
22. Oh my gosh. I didn't even realize.
So we decided to have my daughter Ruby in Costa Rica, and then San Francisco was just, the housing situation was crazy. And so I kind of decided to really take advantage of, my freedom before becoming a mother and live a bit of a life. And that was much less intense than the transitions, I think, before then. The transitions before then were like literally me plopping myself out of my comfort zone to such an extreme, and living in Los Angeles as a director of sales and marketing, and then getting on a plane and moving to a rural village in Ghana.
You've done all the swings.
But I did that because, I just knew that there was more. Like, I could not just settle for that. And so it felt exciting at the time. And in retrospect, like, I was very, naive in just how hard that would be.
Maybe that's better that you didn't know.
I know. I think if I would have known, I would have been like, what? It's about the leaps. This is what's interesting. Like, there's been these moments when I just I get an invitation or I get an opportunity, and there's something that just feels terrifying and exciting about it. And I'm like, I can't say no. And in every instance, I think there's probably been 4 really significant leaps in my life. And in every instance, it took a while for me to see how the universe just opened up all of these different opportunities in a way that I never could have imagined. Like, the people who came in, the doors that opened, it really required me to surrender and just, continuously show up and do my work and ask for support. And amazingly, it was so serendipitous, just one thing after another. And it was just so affirming, okay, I'm doing the right thing. This is the right path. But there are definitely moments where I was just like, what did I get myself into? There were times I wasn't sure how I was going to pay the bills, when I started being a coach, doing all of my own marketing and promotion and client building and retention. It was painful, but it was all part of what I needed to get to where I am. And, you know, in retrospect, like, I'm so grateful for it. It was traumatic and also vital.
Traumatic and vital.
Yes.
And I love what you said about the leaps, because I do think it is that when it feels terrifying and exciting, like that is, you know, you're in the right place if it feels like both.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the last thing I'll say on that point is that I wanted community. I've always wanted to be, you know, journeying with people and creating with people. And there were definitely times when I was very alone. And I think I got to discern between the difference between aloneness and being lonely, you know, and I really got comfortable with aloneness. And I think that was also really necessary for me to be at peace with my own experience, to really kind of be at home with myself. So no matter where I went, I kind of had access to that. But, you know, that's not something that we can teach or that we can coach people on.
Right.
It's something that really just does come through putting yourself out there and taking a risk and being with the discomfort of it. You know, it just happens naturally.
Well, and that is true. It happens through putting yourself in those scenarios where that's what you're feeling, and you're with yourself, and you get to the depths of what you thought you knew about yourself, and you discover a whole new world of it too. But I think most people bypass that, right? They're like, I'm not going to take the leap, I'm not going to take the risk, and so they don't ever get that sort of grounding that comes with it too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a package deal that you just have no idea what it's going to look like when it ends up, but it's worth it. You know, I have no regrets, and here we are. Like, it's just, I look around and I feel like I'm an example of, you know, what happens when you don't settle, that you really can have the relationship, you can have the family, you can be a creator, you can fulfill your life's purpose in a way that you never thought was possible. And as I say that, I'm like, holy shit, I did it. Here I am.
As you're saying it, I have goosebumps all over, and I just want to cry and hug you, because I just have been through, you know, a long, short slice of your life to go, oh my gosh, like I saw you in those different careers and different, you know, phases, relationships, family, all of that, to now go, oh my goodness, she's with this amazing man that she loves and this beautiful little baby, and she's this, you know, incredible executive coach, and just moved to Canada. Like, all of these things that you go, oh my gosh, rewind 2 years ago.
I know, right?
3 years ago, could you have ever imagined? I mean, it is an example of you didn't settle, and you go, no, like, this is what I want. I'm going to keep fighting for that, and, you know, being curious about it. And I think some people would have settled a long time ago and never have realized, you know, where you've gotten as well.
Thank you for that reflection. Yeah, it's really cool to be known by you through so much transformation, transition. Like, I mean, we're both unrecognizable, and it's fucking great to see you.
Amazing. And you too. Yeah. So just to wrap up, you know, for people in transition and going through things in the new year after COVID or through COVID, and this whole year of COVID and going through that, what would be sort of the last piece of advice you'd give them to sort of give them that hope or that light or that like next step? Because obviously you're a master at it, and we both have experienced it. So what would be that last little piece you'd end on for them?
Yeah, let's see. Well, one, don't overthink it. Right. Like I would say, you know, think of the steps that are needed to get you to the next place, and then consider what's reasonable, and just start to make baby moves towards that picture that you see for yourself. It doesn't happen in one broad stroke. It doesn't, you know, I mean, leaps, yes, will definitely change your reality and your existence, but the work will still need to be done. And I really am a believer that of trusting the process. I know that sounds like,
I hate that so much. I hate it when people told me that, but it is right. It is true. We just hate it because it's slower. It's slower than. And
I think also just like knowing that like you're in it. Like when you're in it, and it just feels hard, and it feels like you're pushing up against something and nothing is working or opening up, like that means like you're in it. That's the change that is happening. And on the other side of that when you'd be like, oh my God, I needed to go through all of that to get here. And so like really just trusting that you're going to be okay. You are okay. You're going to be okay. And like, there's so much that awaits you on the other side of this. You know, just really have to believe that. Hold it close to your heart.
I love that. And that is true, because I remember having that conversation when I was deeply in it going, I don't know if I see another side. And now being on the other side, it is so helpful to know, okay, there is another side and it's so worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. And lastly, where do people find you if they want to know more about you? What you do? What's a place where they can go to sort of get a little bit more of Alita?
Let's see. I'm on Instagram.
Awesome.
My handle is The Conscious Concierge. And, you know, I regularly lead retreats around the world. And
not that big part. She's amazing at creating these experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I have all kinds of magic makers from around the world. So I love to get them together to create a really powerful and beautiful space for connection, healing, transformation. And so, you know, more invites to come once the world wakes up. But in the meantime, you know, you can find me there. Reach out to me if you like anything I said and want to touch base. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It was so good to see you.
So good to see you too. Thanks so much.
Thank you for spending so much time with me on Always Ask. If this was impactful for you, please leave a comment or a review. And if you have any questions, visit amandabusbyinc.com. And until next time, don't forget to always ask.